Infinity Works is a fast-growing digital transformation consultancy, striving to be the model employer. And since February 2021, is also part of Accenture. Today, I'm joined by their managing director, James Morgan, and Accenture's Rebecca Tully, to hear what organizations are doing to stand out to employees in the fight for talent around the UK. Welcome back to Tomorrow, Today. Rebecca, James, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Great to be here, Ollie.
Rebecca, let me start with you. Are we living through the Great Resignation?
We are indeed, Ollie, and actually I think it's evolved to the Great Reshuffle. And the chap that coined that phrase, Anthony Klutz, he's got this great quote, and he said, I've got to get this right, he says, "We've learned to fit work into life, not squeeze life into work." And I think that's what's happened. Everybody's realised that they just want to basically work in a different way.
Fitting work into life. So I suppose my question, James, for you on that is, at Infinity Works, you're attracting brilliant talent, as is Accenture, and what are they after? What do they want from you?
Our philosophy is a very people-orientated one. Our ability to attract and retain the industry's top talent is of primary focus to us, and our success is predicated on attracting and retaining those people. And there's lots of different reasons why people want to join Infinity Works, but common things include really gnarly challenges, right? Really gritty challenges involved with brands that we may not even know today. They're the brands of the future, right? They'll become household names of 2025 and 2030. They are rethinking the digital experience and the way that consumers engage with organisations. So they want to contribute towards the organisations that will become the fabric of British society in the future.
Yeah, it's those challenger brands, isn't it? Now, Rebecca, it strikes me that we can get carried away sort of reimagining what the office looks like now that we're in 2022. But it's bigger questions than that, probably, that we should be asking. What are the bigger ones?
So what I loved, Ollie, was, do you remember that episode Reinvention when you had Dr. Nicola Millard in?
Futurist, yeah. BT.
Absolutely fantastic, love her. And she described the analogy of the Zedonk, which I thought was just brilliant. Do you remember? It was a half zebra, half donkey, but not a zebra 3 days a week and not a donkey 2 days a week, a completely different species. Yeah. And that's when I had the aha moment about what hybrid really is. And she went on to describe, if we get it right, what we'll have, and how actually she's anxious about us getting it wrong and actually coming up with horrible hybrids. And actually, I think that's what we're in danger of doing right now, is just focusing about getting people back into the office and not really focusing on having a frictionless experience across both physical working environment and the digital world.
So in the interest of sort of avoiding the horrible hybrid, what leads to companies getting it wrong? Because presumably it's partly they haven't had the difficult conversations that they need to have, but how are you helping them get it right?
So what we're seeing a lot of actually is just misaligned boards, like misaligned folks in the C-suite, not really working together and working collaboratively enough and getting their heads together on that combined vision of what that employee experience looks like, what that employee value proposition needs to be, which actually is table stakes these days, because as we know, to retain your talent, they need to have a strong purpose and a strong brand.
I think this is an interesting point, right? Because of course, you're trying to drive efficiency, and by doing so, you'd want a uniform approach. But I think as empathetic leaders, you've got to recognise that for people to come to work every day and give their very best, you can't have a uniform approach because one size doesn't fit all. And so a greater degree of flexibility when you work so hard to hire great decision makers, and you really want to empower the people that you work so hard to find as the industry's top talent. Why would you want then to take away a determination of how they best work away from them as employees?
So just so I understand, is the trick to enable or empower everyone to do things their own way, or is it helpful to have some lines, if you like, in place?
I think there has to be some guidance, right? Because otherwise there's just complete disorder, right? And there has to be some uniformity, some guardrails perhaps about the way in which organisations want to operate, and we certainly do that, right?
For example?
For example, all of our teams, they work in small squads. We do that because it retains the agility. it enables them to communicate very effectively. And whether they're doing it in a virtual or in a physical way, they come together at a similar time every morning to share the challenges of the previous day and highlight the things that they're going to be addressing that day for those particular customers. That's a great thing that we've carried from a very physical into a virtual world, and then we're operating in a hybrid way today.
Yeah, and I guess this is a challenge, Rebecca, because despite where someone might be physically, making people feel part of that shared mission, that shared team. So help me understand a secret or two to that.
Well, I think we're spending far too much time focused on the where of how we work, but actually I'd challenge us all to think a little bit more about what we do in our time when we're working digitally, because we've fallen into the trap and down a rabbit hole of simply being in formulaic meetings and calls, and actually that is not productive work, and that's making us burn out. It's not good for well-being. So if we can get more creative about what we do in that time, just like we did with the way that we used to be creative outside of work when we were trying to engage our teams in lockdowns with the cocktail making, pasta classes, Zoom quizzes that we all did. But if we could do some of that in the context of the digital working hours and really think about that dual track working across the physical and the virtual space, I think then the employee experience in itself would become more frictionless across the two.
This will be music to the ears of anyone dreading long meetings. James, I want to quiz you about where the talent is coming from and the extent to which you're able to cast your net at Infinity Works more widely.
Yeah, well, and this new hybrid working environment has opened up a whole new world of talent to us, right? And we're not now just limited to people who are anchored to a major metropolitan area. We're not looking at people within a 30-mile radius of a city centre. And for when we're looking for what is a rare individual, somebody who's a great people leader, a great technologist, somebody who can motivate and inspire, somebody who's great engaging with customers, someone who's a great problem solver, these people are hard to come by. So by opening up new talent pools, it's a great thing for us. It's a great thing for our customers.
So I want to come back to this idea of how we don't burn people out as we do that. But what about someone tuned in, Rebecca, who really wants to keep the top talent that they've got? In practical terms, what do you see works, keeping them happy but keeping them from moving on?
Well, in spite of all of the collaborative technology that we're talking about, Ollie, people do still stay for people. So I think we do need to train the leadership of tomorrow in a completely different way with different skill sets. I think, personality traits like just genuine empathy and compassion and leading with a people-first mindset are going to be what's important in the future, as opposed to some of that hero mentality of just following what a leader does that's very old school in this day and age.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. And one of the things we're very focused on and have been right from the first days of Infinity Works, is treating people as humans, the humans that they are, right? They're not resources, they're not numbers. Let's take the time to engage and understand what motivates them, where they can do their best work, what's important to them in terms of, morally and ethically, the work that they want to engage in with the customers that they want to work with. And if we can tailor that experience as much as possible to the individual, and treat them as the human beings that they are, that's critically important. And that's something that our employees really value about Infinity Works.
So have either of you got a tip to help us do that? Because I get this sense of almost being misunderstood, not just in motive, but also in potential. So any practical tips for us on how to bring that to life? Because that is the sort of organisation that I'd want to work with.
So I think a couple of things from me. So I think as we are, in this moment, just getting back to it, definitely just saying thank you. As I say, if we can move away from the where and focus on the what and the how of work and how we're recognising what people are doing and thank them for it, that's going to retain them.
Yeah.
Right?
Being noticed, being appreciated.
Yeah.
Excellent. James?
I think something is, being very real, speaking to people in a very human way and engaging with them in a very human way. That's critically important that we continue to do that and we don't forget that. And we kind of over-indexed on that when we were all working remotely. As we come back into the real world and operate in a multi-dimensional way, let's not forget to just keep it real. Yeah. I think that's really important. The second thing is, let's try and keep the working environment as frictionless as possible. Let's allow people to be really impactful and really productive. We don't want people to having to feel as though they have to do work before they actually get to the work.
The work before
right?
the work.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get rid of that, right? I mean, we have to trust the people. Like I said before, we have to trust these people that we work so hard to hire and find.
And trust, and you're agreeing with that, Rebecca. I guess while I've got you, a final tip, because I sense this sort of opportunity and pressure of catching up, of reuniting. So how do we navigate this without burning people out, without piling too much on them? Because of course, if they can work any place, anywhere, then that could lead in the wrong direction.
Yeah, well, my one tip would be, you know, we're obviously going to be spending a lot more time in the metaverse in the future, and we're doing loads of great work with our clients around inclusion and diversity, because we know that diverse teams drives greater innovation and greater equality. And actually what's happening with the design of the metaverse as it stands today is that there are just too many male brains doing that designing.
Right, this is a very important warning, Rebecca.
Brilliant.
Thank you. James, your final tip.
As leaders, got to lead by example, right? So, you know, think about when you're engaging with your staff, right? You know, not emailing on Friday evenings or on Sunday afternoons and expecting a response. Just being smart about how you engage with your staff and creating a very safe environment for them to do their best work and not feel under pressure to be working and always on.
Listening to you both, I can feel the stress reducing, just hearing about what are some very practical ways of just taking away the nonsense that gets in the way of great productive work. James, Rebecca, great to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.